Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. Isis, Escape from Transylvania. The goddess next door and John Haynes must escape a horde of vampires on the hunt in this horror-filled Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Escape from Transylvania in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. About a year ago, I submitted a query letter to Dynamite Comics. Now, Dynamite Comics is a indie publisher, and they own the rights to the pulp fiction characters of the 1930s, like Doc Savage, The Shadow, and Green Hornet, and they also own the rights to several strong heroines, like Vampirella, like Red Sonja, and Deja Thoris. And your Dynamite Comics also publishes licensed comics on movies like John Wick and movies like Barbarella and TV shows like Charlie's Angels and Xena Warrior Princess. Now, when I submitted to Dynamite Comics, I thought I would be a perfect fit for Dynamite Comics based on my background of writing strong heroines in the Isis series and the E-Steam series, and my work on novels like The Thetas and the Spinsterella trilogy, and my other screenplay books all about Marilyn and all about Nikki. Now, when it comes down to many of the heroines I write in my fiction, they were a lot like the characters in many Dynamite comics, like your Red Sonja or your Vampirella. They were strong heroines who had strength of character, and they were rich, multidimensional women. And that was one of the things I thought that would make me an asset to Dynamite Comics as one of their writers, was the ability to go out here and write many of these heroines and have them be strong heroines who would be very strong in terms of having strength of character and very rich and multidimensional. Because when I looked at Dynamite Comics and I looked at the character catalog they had as related to their heroines, I could easily see Isis or E-Steam being published by a Dynamite Comics and having a Dynamite label on them, because the kind of stories that they write and publish over there were right in line with a lot of the books that I publish as part of the SJS Direct imprint. And that was one of the reasons why I submitted the query letter to Dynamite, because I thought it would be a good fit. Moreover, I looked at some of the types of titles they had with the fantasy and the horror, and I also thought, again, it was a good fit for my writing style, and that was one of the reasons why I would want to work there, is because I thought their types of stories and their types of characters, again, fit right in line with my kinds of characters that I write and the types of stories that I have, and I thought that would be, again, a good fit for me. And when I look at Dynamite's, the way they draw and design many of their books and lay them out, I thought that that would, again, would be a very solid fit for my writing style and the way that I draw and design characters and the way I do story arcs. I thought it would be a good fit for me overall. However, over the last couple of months of looking at Dynamite, I'm really concerned about the direction they've been going in, because when I look at their early books, there was a lot of high quality in terms of the storytelling, a lot of high quality as related to the character development, and a lot of high quality as related to the art. The standards at Dynamite were extremely high when the company, started out early on, back in when I saw them, '08, '09. The books were of very top quality. If you look at their Doc Savage, you look at their Shadow, and you look at your Miss Fury, many of the books were of the highest quality and were neck and neck with Marvel and DC. But over the last couple of years, I've noticed, a real term of decline in quality, especially over the last 2 or 3 years. I look at Dynamite books now, and I'm starting to have concerns for this company, because the high marks were way up there when it started, but lately things have been really falling off. And I started to notice some real problems with a miniseries I bought last year called Hack Slash versus Vampirella. Now, when it came down to this miniseries, they had all the elements of something that appeared to be promising, and the first 3 issues were very, very good. I mean, they did a good job of setting up the main character, the conflict. However, by the time we got to the 4th issue, that's where the story started to really fall apart. and from a strong story to a weak story, because instead of us having a story that just flowed smoothly, it looked like when they went to the fourth issue, they were starting to pad things out for a trade paperback. So they had several scenes repeating in Hack Slash versus Vampirella #4, and that was a real problem for me. And then when I got to the fifth issue, instead of us getting a thrilling conclusion to the story, what we got was an anticlimactic ending that really didn't give a reader much of an incentive to go out here and buy either more issues of Vampirella, or to even think about considering asking Dynamite to go beg Tim Seeley for the rights to create a new Hack Slash series for Dynamite. And that was one of the things that really had me concerned, because usually when you have a good comic, it usually has you begging for more and asking for more books to come out. But when I look at that miniseries, it didn't really, it left me indifferent at the end. You really don't want to leave a customer indifferent at the end of a comic. And as a writer, I know that you don't want to leave people indifferent at the end. You want to have them excited for that next story. You want to have them excited, pumped up, ready to get the next book. And you want to have them anticipating the next book. And for the first 3 issues, I was anticipating, the next issue of Hack Slash versus Vampirella. But I really, later on, after that 4th issue, I really had lost my motivation, because the writing just fell off. Even though Rafael Labosco's art was top-notch, the writing, it just was very generic and by the numbers, and it just started repeating towards the end because they were padding out for trade. Now, when I look at other Dynamite books, I'm really starting to have concern, because when I really look at one of their later books, John Wick #2, it really showed me a serious decline in terms of quality, because this John Wick #2, it was absolutely one of the worst comics Dynamite ever published in the history of the brand. I mean, this book had art that was completely unfinished, panels of art where we had figures that were just incomplete, and we had a story that made absolutely no sense. And this book was a complete embarrassment for the company, and it should be seen as an embarrassment for the company, because when I take a look at, again, Dynamite's earlier works, they were high quality comics. But when I look at some of the stuff they're producing right now, it's clear to me that there is a serious problem as related to the direction of the Dynamite publisher. And I'm starting to see cracks in it when I started to see Gail Simone's reboot when she revamped Vampirella and Red Sonja and Deja Thoris, and then they tried to get things back on track, and it looks like they really have not really gotten back on track since that reboot, where they revamped these characters to make them not be what they were, which is strong, sexy heroines, because that's what Vampirella, Deja Thoris, and Red Sonja are. They're strong, sexy heroines, and that was what their sell point was. But what they did was they canceled their long-running series and then rebooted it for a while, then went to reboot that again. And what happened was Dynamite really started to lose a lot of momentum. The momentum they had was going strong, but that momentum started to fall off, and now they're really starting to tumble. And that's where I'm seeing, problems from a publisher's perspective as related to Dynamite, because again, I look at a lot of their books and it looks like they haven't found their footing again. And I'm looking at them right now, and it's like a real decline in quality as related to many of their books. And that's something that's really concerning to me, because, the comic book industry is in a dire strait right now. And Dynamite was a company that I thought, could weather the storm and really be a serious competitor. It still can be a serious competitor, but it just takes them getting their footing again, because as I see it, they have the catalog, and they have the product, but what they need to do is just really, their editorial needs somebody there with a vision, to navigate a course for Dynamite so that they can become the strong competitor I know that they actually are. Because I looked at a lot of their early books, and their early books, they were very strong. A lot of the books were strong, but I'm seeing right now they're having problems with a lot of their books, where their books aren't really They'll start out strong, like Hack Slash versus Vampirella. Started out very strong, but then they'll fall apart towards the end, and that again is due to editorial not giving a writer guidance, or they go out here and they pad a story out, or they'll do something like with this John Wick, where they have this great franchise property, but because you have a writer who cannot really write this type of concept, writing it, you get the books that really don't capture the essence or the spirit of it, and then you have artists who really don't know how to draw very well, and they just make a complete mess, because John Wick #2 was just a complete embarrassment as a comic. When you take a look at that book, it's just an absolute embarrassment overall for any publisher. I mean, it's even worse than my cover for ISIS, The Beauty Myth, and that was something that I did because I didn't have the money to hire an artist. But there's a company that actually has the money to hire an artist, and you produce something like this and pay for it. That really says something about editorial and its standards, because I would not have accepted that art for John Wick #2 or even that story, because it just isn't acceptable for the marketplace. Now, again, this is why I have an issue with Dynamite as related to its editorial, and again, my concerns about their decline as a brand, because again, when you look at old school Dynamite books, they were right up there with Marvel and DC in terms of quality. But when you look at their newer books after as I see it, the Gail Simone reboots versions, they have not really been able to keep their momentum going, and they've really taken a tumble. And they've gone from this, momentum where they were going close to the hundreds with many of their books, to going back to the cycle that Marvel had with all these reboots. And that's not a really good direction for the company, because when you're rebooting and having to do constant #1s, that it really shows that there's no real direction for the company and no real focus for the characters. And in order for a writer to really, build an audience, they have to have a direction for their series. And they have to be able to build momentum. And that's something I really wish that Dynamite would start focusing on, is, focus on trying to build a direction with your core books, and then trying to build an audience on your core books, and trying to increase your standards for quality, because the standards at Dynamite, they have really fallen off in terms of establishing standards for storytelling and standards for art. Because a recent James Bond Diversity in Comics review, he said it was so bad he didn't even do a video on it because it was just exposition. And I knew what he was talking about, because after I read that Hack Slash versus Vampirella #4, I had run into the same problem. And this is a problem when you have writers who are not getting guidance and instruction, on how to do a story. And that's why you get books that are just filled with exposition and expository scenes and not action. And when it comes down to a comic book, you have to have lots of action going on in order to get the reader excited. And you have to make an effort to keep the reader excited so that they feel compelled to buy the next issue. Because when it comes down to comics, whether they be digital or paper, you have to sell the book that people are holding in their hands right now. And that's something I'm not seeing being done at Dynamite, people selling the book in people's hands. And that's what you do with your storytelling, is you sell the story with the book in the reader's hands. And that book will either get them go out and buy the next issue, or go out and buy a back issue. Now, I would still love to work with Dynamite and work at Dynamite Comics as a writer or an editor, because I believe that I would be a person who could be a tremendous asset to the company. And I would love to help them navigate a course through this rough period where they're really publishing, a lot of books that aren't as great as the books they published in the past, and help them get back on course. And I look at Dynamite again. It looks like it's still a company that can, retake its course and get back on track. And it's not as bad as the place where Marvel is right now, but it looks like they are slipping. And what they have to do is acknowledge the problem and start working towards it. Because I look at the company again. They have a great catalog of characters. They have a great catalog of licenses, But what they need is an editorial direction, and they need quality writers who are going to make an effort to write stories that are true to the spirit of these characters and true to the heart of these characters, and make efforts to do story arcs that really are compelling about the characters and make the brand extremely competitive. Because when I look at Dynamite, again, I see a company that could be a real serious contender in the comic book industry, but they really need to get their footing back and get their momentum back. Because again, I look at their early books and the quality was on the page, the stories were on the page, but I look at their later books over the last 2 or 3 years, and I'm not really seeing that same level of quality that I saw in their earlier books. And again, I always thought I would be a good fit for Dynamite because I write strong heroines and I have a really solid following on social media and in the literary world. And I thought that I could, make a contribution to Dynamite with their brand and maybe even bring some of my characters over, because again, I thought that Isis and Eastine would be a good fit over at Dynamite with them being strong, sexy black heroines, and I thought that that type of those characters would really fit well within the Dynamite brand. I thought they would be a good fit with that label because they already do Red Sonja and Vampirella, and I thought, hey, they could do my characters and maybe even do other characters like the Spinsterella character, and I thought, again, it will be a good fit for that brand. And again, I see this company as having a lot of promise, but they really have to focus on trying to get back on track, and they have to focus on increasing their standards in terms of writing, in terms of editing, and in terms of standards for art, because you have all the elements of success there at Dynamite, but all it takes is the right person with a vision to make sure that these vision gets executed properly and that the concepts get executed properly so that the brand can take itself to the next level. I'd like to be a part of taking it to the next level, but all it takes is for them to get back to me, but they haven't gotten back to me in over a year. But if they wanted to talk to me, I would be open to working with them. If you'd like to try some of the titles of the SJS Direct Publishing imprint, you can click on the link to Amazon.com, and there you can purchase in paperback or ebook the Isis series, the Eastine series, the Temptation of John Haynes, and the Spinsterella trilogy. And you can also purchase my nonfiction as well. And if you want to help me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Eastine Ascension, the Devil's Diva reaches a turning point in her life with this powerful Eastine series story. Get Eastine Ascension at online booksellers today.